Alexander Vladimirovich Bychkov is a Russian serial killer. In the period from September 2009 to January 2012, he committed 9 proven murders in the city of Belinsky, Penza region. The victims of the maniac were men, many of whom abused alcohol or led a vagrant lifestyle. By his own admission, Bychkov was engaged in eating victims. Alexander Bychkov was born in 1988. The younger brother Sergei was born 2 years later. Father, Vladimir Bychkov, worked as a combine harvester, later studied to be a master. Repair of refrigeration equipment. According to neighbors, the mother, Irina Bychkova, had problems with alcohol, to which her father eventually became addicted. At the age of 40, presumably because of problems with alcohol, as well as because of troubles in the family, he committed suicide. However, the mother did not grieve for a long time. She constantly had some drinking buddies and fans. From a young age, according to the townspeople, the mother forced the children to work hard in the garden and collect scrap metal. If the brothers returned home without money, they did not disdain assault. Besides, these boys were engaged in petty thefts from household plots. They were repeatedly caught stealing, but, as a rule, they were pitted and released. My mother beat me. Have you seen the old boilers that have a wire as thick as a finger? Here they are, and if you make a peep, they will add more. It only makes you angrier. But all this is a matter of everyday life. A mother is a mother. I don't blame her. Maybe you should have beaten me more. For some actions, it would definitely be possible to punish more severely. Bychkov spoke during one of the interrogations. Alexander Bychkov is a classic representative of the so-called Herostratus syndrome. He killed because of a craving for self-realization. He wanted to stand out, prove to everyone, and first of all, to himself, that he is capable of very, very much. But in a small town in the Penza region, it was almost impossible to realize.
Hey, I'm not going to beat around the bush. You have to subscribe to the channel and like it so you don't miss new videos.
However, even if there was an opportunity, there was another problem. Bychkov was too ordinary. He did not possess any abilities, and even if he did, he himself did not know about it, because there was no one to develop these abilities in him. The mother drank and was more interested in her male drinking companions. And the 3 children grew up on their own. If in early childhood Sasha could be called quiet and calm, then in adolescence aggression woke up in him. The guy can be understood. He is tired of constantly receiving from his mother, and he began to respond to her in the same way. Soon Irina became afraid of her eldest son, and moved him to her grandmother's house, located nearby. Neighbors said that in the heat of quarrels, Alexander also raised his hand to his brother Sergei. In 2007, Alexander graduated from vocational school with a degree in mechanic for the repair of agricultural machinery, and entered the Belinsky Pedagogical College, but soon, he was forced to take a sabbatical. He needed time to care for his brother, who as a result of an attack by unidentified persons received numerous severe injuries, including traumatic brain injury, and became a disabled person of the second group. Since his youth, he had the nicknames Dried Rambo and Poacher, because of his tattoo on his forearm with the inscription, Poacher. In high school, he tried raw ice cream meat, after which he began to be called a predator. He also ate raw fish. Bychkov committed his first serious crime on September 17, 2009, killing 60-year-old Yevgeny Zydkov. The man came to the Belinsky District Archive for documents for pension registration. The killer met the victim in a local liquor store, invited an elderly man home to spend the night, and at night, when he fell asleep, deprived him of his life. The rest of his victims, men who suffered from alcoholism and led a vagrant lifestyle, Bychkov, who came up with the nickname Rambo, killed according to a similar scenario, invited to a deserted place, got drunk with vodka, stabbed or killed with a hammer. He buried the remains of the bodies behind his own house or threw them into a landfill on Lermontovskaya Street. In order to divert suspicion from himself, the criminal committed murders from May to September, when people came to the city. Numerous construction workers from CIS countries, as a result of which law enforcement agencies first of all worked out versions of involvement in the murders of visitors. The next victim of the Belinsky maniac was his mother's roommate Vladimir Berezovsky. It happened already on November 4, 2009. Vladimir got drunk and had a fight with his mother Irina Bychkova. Alexander was tired of drunken showdowns, especially since when drunk, that a stepfather often allowed himself to raise his hand against Irina herself and her children, so Sasha decided to deal with the stepfather, volunteered to take him home and stabbed him on the way. Moreover, the blade slipped off, and the criminal injured his finger. The wound was characteristic between the thumb and forefinger. The wound was severe, and the maniac was forced to go to the hospital. Alexander was even called for questioning, but, since then about the close relationship of Bychkov's mother and at that, nobody knew the moment of Vladimir, who was listed as missing, and did not seek to find out. We will talk about the poor work of the Belinsky investigative bodies later. Then Alexander was simply released. He stated that he received the wound by accident, falling on a shard during a walk in the park. And after all, they believed, did not check, did not even take a suspicious young man on a pencil. The remains of Vladimir Berezovsky were found only a few months later. The next missing persons in May 2010 were already two men, Lev Andreyev and Alexei Kutuzov, 47 and 37 years old, respectively. Then 54-year-old Yevgeny Marsharov disappeared. The bodies of the men were found, of course, a few months later, and in fact in the city center, in the backyard behind a fairly visited place, the city bath. When finding the remains, the operative staff noted that the body parts of two men, Kutuzov and Andreyev, were scattered within a radius of as much as 100 square meters. That is, the criminal. I purposely went and scattered them over a fairly large area. This led law enforcement officers to think that the killer was a person with a confirmed diagnosis. On charges under Part 4 of Article 111 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation for causing serious harm to health, resulting in the death of a person, a local resident Alexander was convicted and sent for compulsory treatment. Zuplov is a mentally ill disabled person of Group 2, nicknamed Zuplik, whose detention caused a considerable share of criticism of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, but who was later amnestied due to the newly discovered circumstances of the criminal case. A criminal case was initiated against the investigator of the Department of Internal Affairs of the Belinsky district, who put an innocent man on trial, but it was soon closed due to the lack of corpus delicti. Bychkov hid for 8 months, but then began to kill again. The first victim after a long break was Vladimir Turasov, a man who led an antisocial lifestyle, previously convicted. No one paid any attention to his disappearance. But when 37-year-old Sergei Lizyanin and 34-year-old Sergei Sukharov disappeared, Belinsky realized that the maniac had returned. The missing Lizyanin worked as a janitor, drank. The marriage broke up, he lived with his mother, but the man was never seen either in drunken gatherings, or even more so in fights. He drank at home and then calmly went to bed. He did not show aggression in alcoholic intoxication. On that day, June 11, 2011, Sergei went out to buy cigarettes, and did not return. He just disappeared, not even his body was found. And on July 19, Sergei Sukharov disappears, and also without a trace. Alexander Bychkov got caught completely by accident. After 2 murders, he suddenly felt an acute shortage of knives. After all, it was necessary to kill with something. The guy got tired of doing it with improvised objects, he wanted more professional tools. On the night of January 21, 2012, Alexander Bychkov broke into the Everything for Home store and stole 3 garden knives and money totaling about 10,000 rubles. The thief's interest in large knives attracted the attention of law enforcement agencies. Also, from the picture of the crime, it became clear that the person who entered the store was not a large person, of small stature and slim build. They began to check the young residents of Belinsky, who had a habit of carrying knives with them. Soon the attention of the guardians of the law turned to the figure of 23-year-old Alexander Bychkov. At that time, the guy weighed only 56 kilograms, was quite slim. They decided to detain Alexander, and he confessed to the theft. The stolen knives were found in his house, as well as during a search of the suspect, his personal diary was found, in which 11 murders were described. A large number of films containing violent scenes were also found. During interrogations, Bychkov admitted that he sometimes ate his victims. In his diary, Bychkov called himself a lone wolf, explaining the murders with a desire to assert himself. Another motive, according to investigators, was hatred of men who looked like mothers' drinking buddies, criminals, vagabonds and alcoholics. A comprehensive forensic psychiatric examination revealed the presence of a mixed personality disorder in the offender, however, which did not deprive him of the opportunity to give an account of his actions. Based on the examination, the killer was found sane. During the investigative experiments, the maniac enjoyed demonstrating his technique of attacks. At the same time, a smug smile did not leave his face. In Belinsky there were also cases of missing men of different ages, but the criminal himself claimed that he has only 9 people on his account. At the same time, Alexander had his own philosophy. He claimed that he deliberately took the lives of only men because they can stand up for themselves. He did not kill women and children on principle, and did not even plan to. The hand would not have risen. Bychkov was very proud of this principle of his. But there are several important circumstances to consider. First of all, despite the external frailty, the Belinsky maniac possessed impressive strength. Since he had trained since childhood, he had to carry weights in the garden. Secondly, he still killed men, albeit strong, but who were in a state of alcoholic intoxication, and sometimes quite strong. And the maniac himself invariably took care of bringing the victim into the appropriate condition. He always got the men drunk before killing. Maybe because he understood that he definitely couldn't cope with being sober. But Alexander, judging by rare interviews, is still proud of himself. On December 28, 2012, the prosecutor of the Penza region approved the indictment against Bychkov. The accused refused a jury trial. The court found 9 episodes proven. Alexander Bychkov was found guilty. The facts of cannibalism could not be proved. On March 22, 2013, the Penza Regional Court sentenced him to life imprisonment with serving his sentence in a special regime colony. The convict and his defender, who disagree with the verdict, filed complaints to a higher authority. The Judicial Board for Criminal Cases of the Supreme Court of the Russian Federation, having considered the complaint, left the verdict unchanged, and the complaints were not satisfied. Bychkov is serving his sentence in the IC-5 penal institution on the island of Ogneny in the Vologda region. Already in prison, Alexander met by correspondence with a U.S. citizen. A girl named Christina Var saw Bychkov in some documentary program, and I fell in love. An affair began in letters, then Christina repeatedly came to the colony, also contacted her lover's mother, Irina Bychkova, whom she helped financially. In the end, the lovers got married and they had a son.